This is Gemara and Yevamos, Daf Chof Gimel. All the learning should be an incredible shidduch for your Chav Miriam Bas Chaya Pesel, Chana Bas Nechama, Yisrael Chaim and Dvar Shlomo Lebizava, Ovik Ben Teli, Shema Ben Chaya. They should find that their shidduch Hagin Bekarov, as well as Chos Yeshua Shalana Bas Shana Malka, as well as Elik Ben Yitarachal. They should be Zeichat Yeshua is Bekarov, as well as Chos Ruach Shlomo Shlomo Yezmin Vedish Mamantila, Naftasim Mechlas and Nechama Bas Riva, Shmu Basheva Figa Bashira Chana. Sarah Baskila, Besoich Shar, Chayli Yisrael, we pick it up. We're on the bottom of Chav Beis and Beis in the middle of a lengthy discussion between Rav Yosi, Rav Yehuda, and the Rabbanan with regard to a case. If you're looking at your screen, it's smack in the middle of Amid over here, Chav Beis and Beis by the two dots. The case of one who is Ba'ala Chaysav, he Bas Ishes Aviv, one who sleeps with his sister, and his sister is also the daughter of the wife of his father. So is there two Yisurim or is there one Isser? Says the Rabbanan, there are two Yisurim. Chayim Misham Achaysa, it's his sister. V'chayim Misham Bas Ishes Aviv, it's the wife, it's the daughter of, of his father's wife. Rav Yehuda says, no, you're only Chayim Misham Achaysa. What does the Machlekes boil down to? We had a fundamental Machlekes. I learned up the Torah. The Rabbanan said we have two Psukim. Ervas Achayska Bas Avicha Bas Yimecha, Ervas Bas Ishes Avicha. Two Psukim, two Yisurim. Rav Yehuda said, no, the Torah limits it. Achayska, she's only quote unquote your sister. She's also Bas Ishes Aviv, but you're Chayiv because she is your sister. We're in the middle of the exchange. We finished off yesterday in which the Gemara retorted and explained that Rav Yehuda says that if you were going to say like the Rabbanan, it should have said Achais Chayi in the other pasuk. Just one dot of clarification. The case that the Rabbanan were discussing when the Gemara said it's Bas Ishes Aviv, who's also the daughter of your father's wife, as well as your daughter. Let's just actually read it inside. We said that is a case of a daughter born out of wedlock between the father and the mother. So now says the Gemara, we have 6 lines from the end of the Amid. Rav Yehuda asks the Gemara, what does Rav Yehuda, who holds that there's only one Isser, the only Isser is Achais Chayi, which again, one is in Pasuk Tes, one is in Pasuk Gud Aleph, says the Gemara of Yehuda holds there's one Isser, Achais Chayi, and there's no Isser of Bas Ishes Avicha, the daughter of your father's wife. Says the Gemara, so Rav Yehuda, Bas Ishes Avicha, my Avid Lay, what does he do with the second Pasuk? The Torah seemingly includes 2 different Isurim. Explains the Gemara, this comes to teach me that when the mother is one that the father is allowed to be married to. Meaning what? If there is a sister born from either a shivcha, a Jewish, a slave woman, or avodas chavim, or a guy, then that sister is not a sister, says Rabbi Yehuda, she'ein ishas avicha ba, and in such a case there would be no iser. Asks the Gemara 1 second, why do we say it comes to exclude a sister from an anusa, from a woman that was violated from the father? She's not a child born out of normal relations, she's a child born out of wedlock. Says the Gemara, that you can't say. Why not? The Rava asked, Ksiv Ervas Bas Bincha Bas Bincha Lo Sigale Ha Bas Binadida Bas Bita Dida Shari. Said Rav, says in one pasuk, Ervas Bas Bincha Bas Bincha Lo Sigale, you should not uncover the nakedness of the daughter of your son, or the daughter of your daughter, Habas Binadida. What does this imply? That her son's daughter, the wife's son's daughter, the granddaughter, Ubas Bidadida, and the daughter's daughter, Shari is mother. But yet, you said there's another pasuk in the last line of Chabez Beis. Ervas Isha Ubita Loisigale, as Bas Binab as Bas Bita. The second pasuk says Ervas Bas Everybody's Isha. Here it's talking about your wife. And it says you should not uncover the wife and her daughter. And the pasuk continues and says her daughter's daughter. So we have a sneer over here, asks Rava. On one hand, it sounds like your wife's granddaughter is not an erva. On the other hand, it says your wife's granddaughter is an erva. How do you learn up Psukim? Says the Gemara, Ha'ketzad kan be'oinsin kan b'nisuin. Says Rava, how do we reconcile these two psukim? One must be talking about Einzim, one must be talking about Nisuim. And therefore it says that the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, you see from Rava that a daughter born out of wedlock may anusin from a forced relationship still has the status of a daughter, and therefore you can't say that that is what the pasuk comes to exclude. As we turn over to today's Daf Chav Gimel and Aleph asks the Gemara another question, another potential how Rabbi Yehuda could learn Eres Bas Ishas Avicha Veima Pra L'Chayve Lavin. Maybe it excludes that according to Rabbi Yehuda there's no Iser Daraisa on Chayve Lavin, and the top Rashi speaks out, what would the case be in Mas Avim Mamzeres if the father marries a Mamzeres and has a daughter from them? It's not a sister because it's Chayve Lavin. So Ve'ema Dol Tafsi B'Kedushin. So maybe we should say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Torah would come to teach us that you cannot marry such a girl. And even if you did, Chayve Lavin, the Kedushin would not work. Amar Abba Chayve Lavin Tafsi B'Kedushin. No, it's not true. We hold a Chayve Lavin. If one, it's usher, of course, you can't marry Chayve Lavin. But if you do, the Kedushin is Chal. How do I know? It says Rabba, it says in the Torah, a person has two wives, one loved and one hated. Says the Gemara, what does the pasuk mean if someone has two wives, one is hated and one is loved? What exactly does that refer to? Ella must be referred to Ahuva ben Isuel, Snua ben Isuel. You know what it refers to? It means that one is beloved with regard to the Nisuin, the marriage. One is hated with regard to the marriage. What is that referred to? And yet, V'amer Rachmana, and the Torah says, Ki yisi yena, you are married. So we see that even when there's a marriage that is hated by God in the Torah, still the Kedushin is Chal, and this is where we know that Chayve Lavin, the Kedushin will still be Chal, and therefore if someone is together with a Mamzeres and has a daughter, that daughter is considered legally your sister, and therefore it will be Chayve Lavin. Ask the Gemara again. We're trying to figure out, just to remind ourselves. We're in Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if someone sleeps with his sisters, Avicha, there's only one Isser. And the question is, but there are two psukim, like the Rabbanan said. So we're trying to figure out what does Rabbi Yehuda do with the pasuk of Bas Ishas Avicha, and we're within multiple suggestions and how we can potentially learn up that pasuk. So suggest further, Ve'ima Pra L'Chayve Krisos. Why do we say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the pasuk comes to exclude a woman who is under the Chayve Krisos, one who it's forbidden to be with her due to a Krisos, Karis. Amar Rava, Amar Kraevras, Achaisra Bas Avicha, Bas Yimecha, Moledes Bayis, Moledes Chotz. Says Rava, the pasuk says, the erva of your sister, Bas Avicha, the daughter of your father, Oy Bas Yimecha, the daughter of your mother, Moledes Bayis, whether it was born in the house or outside of their house. What does that mean? Explains the Gemara. The pasuk is referring to the fact whether we tell the father, keep this woman, or whether we tell the father, you must be divorced from this woman. In both cases, meaning whether it's a marriage that the father has to stay with or not, Chayve Krisos or not, the daughter is still a daughter, and the daughter will create a relationship with a son. It's a Chayis Chayi. So says the Gemara, they can't be excluded. Ema asks Gemara, what second? Why don't we say that the pasuk is referring to something else? What does it mean of Itzi? What does it mean to tell the father to keep this marriage or not? So now the Gemara throws it back on its head. What we originally say comes to exclude. We originally said It comes to exclude a shivcha or an akum, that if someone has relations with a maidservant or a guy, that daughter is not a daughter. So now the Gemara is asking, how do you know? Maybe bas ishis avicha comes to exclude cases of chayve krisos. Says Mar can't be chayve krisos. Why not? Because the Torah says meledis bayis, meledis chut. A relationship you stay with, a relationship you keep. Therefore, coming to exclude chayve krisos. Says Mar, how do you know? Maybe it's coming to exclude the shivcha and the avodas gechavim. Answers the Gemara. Amar Kra. It says in the pasuk bas ishis avicha meisheish lo ishos lavicha. The word bas ishis avicha refer to the fact that one in which there is ish. And therefore comes to include one who is with a chaisa or shivcha chavim, in which there is no ishos, and therefore says the Gemara when the pasuk says meledis bayis meledis chutz, is coming to say Kares, that it is considered a sister and it would be included in the Isser. And now the obvious kasha marois. We have two ways of going. How do you know which way to go? Explains the Gemara, Mistabra chayve krisas avli the rabush kin tafsi b'kedushin. La alma. I rather include chayve krisas in which there's kedushin to the rest of the world. Says Mara, how do you know? Maybe the opposite. Adarabba. Shevcha v'zchavim avli the rabba is di megaria di lidi de nami tafsa b'kedushin. An interesting svara. On one hand, the shivcha, the maid servant, and the guy is more potentially able to marry this guy. Why? Because if they are megayer, then they're mutter. Whereas when it comes to the chayve krisas, they'll never be mutter. Says the Gemara, l'chim megaria. Gufa achrini, a famous line, as we already started seeing in previous days, that when one becomes a ger, they are a different guf. It's a different person entirely. A literal translation of Gershon is Gayer Katan Shenoiladami, says the Gemara. It's Gufa Achrinahi. It's completely different entity. It's a different person. Therefore, you can't ask such a question. So now, says the Gemara, we finish with the race of Yehuda, and now, and as the Gemara classically does, we shift the focus to the sheet of the Rabbanan, who say that there are two Yisurim, and ask the Rabbanan, Lemute Shechavaz Chavim Minalahu, according to the Rabbanan, that if someone is with his Achaischa, which is Basish Zavicha, the Rabbanan held that there are two Yisurim, one of Achaischa, one of Ishes Basish Zavicha. So how do the Chachamim know to exclude a Shivcha, a girl born from a Shivcha Chavim? Explains the Gemara, Navkulu, you know where they learned it out from? It says that when one is with a maidservant, where do the children go? Where does the woman go? It all goes to the master. It's not your wife. Now when that person leaves servitude, those people stay behind by the master. So that's how we know that they're not part of the family. According to Rav Yehuda, we need two different psukim. One to teach me one about a shivcha, one about a guy. Now why do we need two different psukim? Why can we lump them together like the Rabbanan? I would have thought only a shivcha. Why? Because there's no chiyas, there's no yichos when it comes to a shivcha. However, when it comes to a guy which at some level has a yichos, that it would go after the father, maybe it would be included. Says the Gemara, it's no sheikh the mitzvahs. Of course, the shivcha while they're married has to mitzvahs. Therefore, that's why we need two psukim. V'Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, why do we need two psukim? According to the Rabbanan, I understand that we're excluding the Shivcha. How do we know to exclude the Avodah Chavim? There's only one pasuk. So what's the obvious suggestion? Neilef mi Shivcha, learn out from Shivcha. Says Gemara, Hanach Mitzvah Zrichi. We just proved that you can't do that. We just proved that each one has a Chiddush. That Shivcha and Avodah Chavim are two separate entities. So according to the Rabbanan, how do we know to include both? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yechon V'Shem V'Shem Yochai, about 10 lines to the bottom of the Amid, Amar Kra, Ki Yasser has been Says the pasuk, you'll turn away your son from me. Bincha meYisraelus Kari Bincha. Vein Bincha Ba Min Chavim Kari Bincha. When is someone called your son? If his mother is Jewish. If his mother is not Jewish, if he comes from a guy, he's not called your son. Ella Bina. Of course, this is where we learn out that the Jewishness comes from the mother. So if it's a mother, then it's Bincha. If it's a Goyish mother, then it's Bina. It's her son. It has no relationship to you. She is not. He, the child, is not a Yid. And Amar Ravina comes from here. It says Ravina, 8 lines to the bottom. Shamina, Be'bincha ma bin aved chavim. Says Ravina. You know we learn from Rabbi Yechanan. If we have your daughter's son who comes from a guy, karui bincha. That is called your son. That is called your son. Says the Gemara, that's exactly what we just said. So are you telling me that Ravina says Israel have a lot of kosher? Sounds like you're repeating that everything goes with the mother. So it sounds like if we have a guy who's together with a yid, what's going to child be? The child's going to be kosher. Asks the Gemara, the kid can't be a kosher. Yisrael Pasul Mekri. True, he has the status of a Yid because his mother is a Yid. And what's true, what we're proving over here is everything goes after the mother. If the mother's Jewish, kid's Jewish. But it's true, the kid's not going to be a kosher. The kid's going to be Pasul. It came from an Evid. It came from a mamzer. Asks the Gemara, hi b'shiva umais ksiv. Going back what we saw a few days ago, that this pasuk is by the Shiva umais, in which we spoke out then that is the one time in history, the chiddush that the Chazal removed their Yiddishkeit from them. Ki yasir excuse me, no, I think I just made a terrible mistake. No, that was by the Aser Shvatim. That had nothing to do with what we saw a few days ago. Scratch that from the recording. Hi, B'Shiva Umas Ksiv. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? But this pasuk, that's what Rashi is pointing out. This pasuk is a pasuk specifically about the Shiva Umais. But how do we know about all other goyim that is going to be the same status? Explains the Gemara, Ki Yasir l'rabbis. You know what the pasuk is? Ki Yasir, you'll turn away. L'rabbis kol ha'meisarim. Anyone who can turn someone away, and therefore we see that any guy that is together with a Yid, the child still goes after the mother. The child is a Jew, not like the father will be a Jew, which is possible. Explains the Gemara, explains the Gemara, who are the Rabbanan? The Rav Shimon. So we're trying to figure out Shitas Rabbanan. Trying to figure out how they learn out Shivcha and Akum. It's beautiful. They're going with the Shita Rav Yehuda, that is Dairish Taimah Dekra, and that's how the Rabbanan are going to end up with 2 Yisurim. That's how Rav Yehuda is going to end up with 1 Isur. Now we continue. We turn over the Amud and we go into new cases of Yibam and Chalitza in cases of Suffolk. Cases of Suffolk. Let's go straight into the Mishnah and understand what's going on. Says the Mishnah, Chav Gimel Abeis, Mishakidish Achas Mishtei Achayis. Someone who marries one of 2 sisters. But you know what the problem is? He does not know which sister he married. He doesn't know. He knows he married either Rachel or Leah. If he doesn't know, did he marry Rachel or did he marry Leah? What does he do now? So of course he cannot be with either of these women because he doesn't know which one he's married to. But he cannot just go and marry someone else. She cannot just go marry someone else because she might be married to him. So says the Mishnah, the halacha is, no, saying get lazu. He must divorce each of them, so that they each could go and marry someone else, and he's not allowed to be with either of them. He has to divorce both of them. But now, and this is why this comes into our Mishnah Yevamos, Meis, what happens if he's nifter? So he's nifter before he divorces them, and now there are 2 women that we're not sure if he's married to. And so Reuven's nifter. Reuven leaves over these 2 women, one of them he was married to, and Reuven has a brother, Shimon. What do we do? So Shimon has a potential potential connection to both of these women, but it's a suffix, we don't know. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Shimon has to do chalitza to both of them, because each one is a potential connection. You have to chalitza to both. Let's say Reuven dies, leaving over 2 brothers, Shimon and Levi. Again, this same case in which there are 2 women, potentially 2 women sisters. One of them Reuven's married to, we don't know which one. So what does Shimon and Levi have to do? Says the Mishnah. Very gishmak. One does chalitza. One does chalitza. The other one is now allowed to do yibum. Other one now is allowed to do libum. Let's see Rashi for a moment. Rashi explains, why do you have to do chalitza from both? 2 lines from the top. Says Rashi, the reason you have to do chalitza from both because you don't know which one to do is the Yevama. And in the case where there's one brother, says Rashi, you cannot do chalitza to one and ibum to one. Why not? It's the sister of your chalutza, and therefore it's an Isidrabanan. The Yevum Nami law, you also can't do yibum first. The Damalai is Yevama, maybe it's not Yevama. And then there's a Zika connection to the other woman, and the sister of the one with the Zika is at some level Ki'ishtai, and you can't even hear. So when there's one brother, you're up the creek, he has to do chalitza to both. But when there are 2 brothers, what do we say? One does chalitza, one does ibum. Let's continue in Rashi. Continues Rashi, in the second narrow line, Techila, one does chalitza first, achas to one of the sisters. V'hasheni, and the second brother, he's allowed to do yibum. Why? Explains Rashi. If this woman is the Yevama, if this is the woman that Reuven was originally married to, beautiful, Reuven died, leaves over his wife, now the brother does Yibam, everything's good and dandy. And let's say this is not the right woman. Let's say it was the other woman that Reuven was married to. Still no problem. Why? Because Shimon already did Chalitza, so Levi can now go and do Yibam. There's no issue that it's a sister of the one of the Zika. There's a connection. Why not? Chalitza, afka lezika, chalitza, get rid of it. So if Shimon comes and does chalitza to one, then Levi could do even to the other. Again, let's get this case clear, because in a moment it's going to get a little more wild as we add in more people, but it's the same Yesod repeating itself. So we have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven is not sure which of 2 women he married, Rachel or Leah. So if it's Reuven in a vacuum, Reuven has to divorce both of them. If Reuven only has one brother, Shimon, and Reuven dies, Shimon has an obligation to do chalitza to both. If there's 2 brothers, Shimon and Levi, so if Shimon does chalitza, now Levi's allowed to go and do what? Yibam. Why? Because whichever way you look at it, Levi could do Yibam. Either what he's doing is he's doing Yibam to the right woman if she was the one that was originally married to Reuven, or what he's doing is he's just marrying a random girl. There was a Zika, there was some sort of connection to the sister, and we know Achai Ziku Kasa is forbidden, but once Shimon came in and the Chalitza removed that Zika, now Levi could go and marry her without a problem. Says the Mishnah 4 lines down, let's say if both brothers went and married them, Ein Moitziim Miyadam, we do not force them to get divorced. Why not? Rashi explains, because each one potentially is marrying the right one, and the issue of Achaiziku Kasai is only a suffix over here, therefore we're going to allow them to stay married. Next case in the Mishnah, we have 2 brothers, Reuven and Shimon, 2 non-brothers, A and B, who marry 2 sisters, but each one doesn't know which brother sister they married. So we have 2 people in the same boat. They don't know if they married Rachel, if they married Leah. So in the vacuum, they'll have to give both get in and move on. So let's say both these people die. So we have 2 people, A and B. Each one has a suffix marriage to 2 women. They both die, and each one has 1 brother. So very simple. It's mamish the same case as the beginning of the Mishnah, just transposed into 2. Zachol it's the shteim, zachol is the shteim. Each of those chalitza to both. Again, we continue. One has 1 brother, one has 2 brothers. Very simple again. Hayachid, the one that has 1 brother, chalitza the shteim, he has 2 chalitza to both. Vashnayim, the exact same case of case 1 in the Mishnah. doubled, transposed to case 2 when we have two unrelated people that married two sister. We don't know which one. Either they both give gain, or the one brother both does chalitza, or if there's two brothers, one does chalitza, one does yibum. Kabbalah beginsu. Ein moitzim yadim. If they went and got married, it's not a problem. Let's say each of these people, A and B, each has two brothers. So now, so each one needs to have one brother doing chalitza, and again, the same case like Reuven, Shimon, Levi, now just doubled. So Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Shimon does chalitza, Levi does yibam. Here is the same thing, A, B, and C, the same exact thing. One does chalitza, one does yibam, doubling it up to either side. Kadmu shnayim. If two of them came, v'choltzu, and they did chalitza, lo yavmu hashnayim. If kadmu, one more time, kadmu shnayim v'choltzu, if the two brothers went into chalitza, lo yavmu hashnayim, the two other brothers cannot do yibum. Then ain't motzi miyadim. In the last case, we'll see in the Gemara what's going on. So let's just begin the Gemara in what's going on in the Mishnah. So we go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. The beginning of the Mishnah taught us if someone is not sure which of two women is he married to, said the Mishnah, divorce. Get to both of them. Why? Says the Gemara Shmami. We see from over here. Kedushin jen masurin labia. Have a kedushin. We see that even though this kedushin, this Savi kedushin, that he married both of them, is never going to result in a biyah. It's never going to result in being able to sleep with this woman because he's not sure which one he's married to. Still, it is a valid kedushin. Says the Gemara, no raya. That's everyone's thinking. No, when he got married, he knew he married to. Only later was he not sure which one. And therefore, when the Kedushin happened, when he said Aram and Kudashasli, he knew who he married. So at that moment, it was Kedushin HaMasurim Le'Biyah. At that moment, she was right to him. Only afterwards did they get confused. And says the Gemara, they cannot be the Mishnah. The wording is beautiful. The Katani says in the Mishnah, Ve'ein yodeya, v'loi Katani ve'ein yodua shmamina. It says right now he doesn't know. It doesn't say he never knew. And that is a beautiful raya. Says the Gemara, Maikam Ashmalan, what is the Chiddush? Explains the Gemara, Seifa Tzrichle. No, the Chiddush is not that he has to give them both gain. The Chiddush is in the case of Yibam. That means, V'loyach echad Chiddush l'shtayim, or l'shtayim echad Chiddush v'echem yabim. Davka Michlat v'adi Yevumi. And the Chiddush of the Mishnah is that the first brother has to chalitza, then the second brother could do yibam. As we explained when we learned Rashi in the Mishnah, you cannot do yibam first, because if you do yibam first, what are you doing? You're marrying your achais, the sister of the zekuka, that there is potentially connection here. So you have to first do chalitza and then do yibam. And we continue 4 lines into the Y line. Two men, A and B, not related, married two sisters, and we said this is just a transposing the case A, doubling it into the second case of the Mishnah. Says the same raya from the fact that they're married, it sees a good kedushin. Hachanami explains the Gemara, but they knew originally, then they got confused. They cannot be done in Yodea, but look at any Yodua Shmamina. Oh my Kamashlo, what's the Chiddush? Seifa Zrichle, it says the Seifa, Seifa Zrichle. Meisu, if they died, says the Gemara, the obvious kasha, Pshita, Hainu Reisha, that's the same case as the Reisha. So here's the Chiddush, and we'll finish with this. Ma'u the Tema legs are Treya to Chad. Maybe we should make Gzeir Derabanan forbidding this case. Kamash Malon, that we do not make such a Gzeir of a Davka Michlas V'al Yevumi, Al Yevumi B'Reisha Loi, why not? T'kapaga V'Yevam V'Shok. We'll pick up in going into the end of the Mishnah when there were two brothers with two sisters, and each one died, leaving over two brothers in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.